If you are a woman living her best hot mess express life while simultaneously crushing it, and you're craving more clarity, purpose, and excellence, get ready because you're in the right spot. I am your host, Chelsey DeBruin-Colbert, and I want to welcome you to Season 2 of All Things Excellence, the podcast, where I'll be bringing you all the inspiration and insights your excellence-seeking heart desires. This season, I'm stepping back into chasing big, bold, and absolutely terrifying goals, sharing every honest step and misstep along the way. We're continuing our beloved Unscripted series, featuring live clarity coaching sessions with guests just like you, and diving deep into raw, behind-the-scenes stories of powerhouse women founders I am wildly obsessed with, whose journeys will fuel your own. So grab your coffee, settle in, and get ready to discover just how close you are to the life your soul is calling you to create. This is All Things Excellence. Hey, All Things Excellence fam. Welcome to week 3 of our Financial Friday series. Today, I'm bringing you something with all the vulnerability hangover. You guys know how I am. I'm always pretty willing to just rip the mask off and show you behind the scenes just to let you know why something is so passionate to me. And I want to share my personal money story and what really causes me to be so passionate about this entire series, and why I believe that no matter how much money you make or don't make, whether you're a spender, whether you're a saver, or you're born into money, or you don't have any at all, I think that you have a money story, and that I believe every single person has some emotional work that they could do around money. So I'm going to start by saying I've always been wildly fascinated by it, how people respond to it. I've been intrigued by old money, people then that are new money. I grew up in a tiny town, and then I lived in North Dallas, and then now I live in one of the top 3 more affluent suburbs in Arizona. How people respond to it. When we moved to Dallas, we noticed there's this thing called small town rich. Being from a small town, we have a lot of people where it's like the business owners in town. And when you move and you leave, you realize it's beyond the kids that are, like the kids of like the doctors and the lawyers and, the hardware store owner that have money like that. That's just like small town money. But in that tiny little world that you lived in, they do have more money than basically everybody else in the town. And so we always call them, my husband and I, we call them small town rich. There's the, I need you to know that I have lots of money kind of person. And I have had the absolute privilege of working pretty closely with 3 different guys who are my dad's age through my lifetime. And one of them, one day, my husband and I were with him, and we're driving down a road, and he pulled off the side of the road because there was an end table that he saw. In Arizona, this is a common thing, you guys. There was an end table on the side of the road. It was a little boutique shoppy type of thing, and just on the side of the road. And he pulled off, and he gets out, and we're standing out there in the pouring down rain, looking at this granite end table. I think it was a card out of a freaking geode or something. And the table was more than $10,000. I do remember that. But we were like in his self-driving Maserati. So obviously this was not a problem at the time. And I said, "What do you think? Are you going to get it? Like, this would look so beautiful in your home." And he goes, "I'm going to teach you something right now." And I was like, "Okay." And he owned hundreds of restaurants. And I only got to know him for a short time before he passed away, but I learned a lot about money from him before he passed away. And he didn't come from money, but he definitely built all of his money. He started with wildly humble beginnings. He was a worker at a KFC, and before he knew it, he owned a bunch of KFCs. And then at the time of his passing, he owned hundreds of restaurants all over the country. And he said, "I'm going to let you know something. Just because you can doesn't mean that you should." And he goes, "Do I like the table? I do. Could I buy the table? I could. Would it even bother my money? Like, would it impact his finances to dump over $10,000 on this end table? Nope, wouldn't even notice it, wouldn't even flinch. But is it really the perfect table that I want? And do I really need to be spending this money on this table? Like, am I really going to get that kind of an exchange of joy from that?" He said, "I'm just not. So just because you can doesn't mean you should." It's one of those lessons I remember my mom's best friend's mom. We were shopping, and she was, teaching me about sales shopping. I was like 12 years old. My parents had sent me to stay with her for 2 weeks, and she was teaching me how to shop sales at Dillard's. And she said, "Just because it's a sale doesn't mean you should buy it." Just because it's on sale doesn't mean you should buy it, which I'm constantly trying to remind my husband, who grew up with a mom that did a lot of garage sale shopping. Just because it's on sale doesn't mean that we need to buy it, doesn't mean that we need to add it from home. The second guy that I was around when I lived in Dallas, it was a very small company, but it was in commercial real estate, so he was very wealthy inside of this small company. And I got to be around the CEO quite a bit. And I was at the front desk a lot, which is why I saw him nonstop. And so at the time, he would get very consistently watches that cost over $50,000 delivered. And he would always get them delivered to the office, because then we would have to sign for them. And it was just safer than having them obviously arrive at his very gated $16+ million mansion. And this was back in 2017. So God, the mansion is probably like $30 million at this time in Dallas. And I think like Mark Cuban lived 2 doors down from the guy or something. But again, I got to talk to him on a daily basis. So kind, so generous, just such like a regular old guy. But he did love really nice things and these $50,000 watches. And so it gave me this kind of like weird permission. I think that's where I found, like, I watched him be wildly frugal in certain things. Like, he wasn't, kind of like the first guy that I was talking about. He loved flying Southwest and always flew free. He wasn't even on American with first class. Like, he was always on Southwest just because he never had to pay for a flight. But he did own a piece of a jet, but he rarely flew it. He mostly rented it out. Where this other guy also, he didn't have a jet. He mostly just flew business to first class. And I watched him be wildly frugal with so many things, but then really get to invest and collect the things that meant a lot to him, which was these watches. And I honestly think that's where this weird permission with myself of I'm frugal in all the other areas, but I really freaking love some Golden Goose shoes. And if you don't know what Golden Goose shoes are, they definitely run at the very least $600, at the most, well over $1,000. I have a few pair. I love them. They are so comfortable. They are handcrafted. And I think he was that person. I think he gave me that permission that you can be frugal in a million areas, and then you can splurge and spoil yourself in the area that really means a lot to you, in this area of quality that matters to you. And then the third guy, when I was in college, I got to be his intern, and he owns a company that is a worldwide company. And they, places like the Olympics and NASCAR, and really, basically his company has lights on every sports field in Arizona. I can't even imagine his net worth. I literally can't even imagine his net worth. I had been to his home with him and his wife. Again, got to work side by side with him as his intern through college. And the man is known for driving a white utility van. And that's all he ever drives. He shows up every day to work in the same polo and the same like brown Dockers, pants or whatever that a lot of Midwest people wear to church on Sunday. And he, again, was never flashy about his money, always wildly frugal with his money. But I also sat on the board because I was the student body president at my college. I also sat on the board. I was a student rep on the board. And I also saw how insanely giving he was when it came to what the school needed and making sure the school was taken care of. And we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars from the man that drives a white utility van and wears the same basic outfit every day, but will throw millions and millions and millions of dollars, and I mean tens and tens of millions of dollars, at a cause that he believes in, that really honestly has no return to him, but he just believes in it. And I think being really young, having those examples, I was in my 20s when I was experiencing these people, and one of them in my early 30s, it showed me how, regardless of, growing up in this very small town place in Iowa and then moving to Dallas and seeing really big money for the first time, and wondering how I would drive around Dallas. I would go, there's like hundreds of multi-million-dollar homes. What are all these people doing that there are hundreds of million-dollar homes? Where when you're in Iowa, you're like, oh, there's select million-dollar homes. And you think they must own the car dealership, and they must be the doctor, and they must be the lawyer. And, like you're kind of thinking about it in that way. Whereas when you move somewhere that's so big, where there's hundreds of million-dollar homes, it fascinated me about how different people look at money differently. And that's where I started really in my head categorizing, people that are old money, new money, small town rich, that you need to know I have a lot of money, flashy money people. And then the people that they have so much money, they don't even think about the fact that they have money or don't have money because they're purely viewing it as a tool. And for me, growing up, I grew up on a farm where you would make $1 million one year and you could lose $2 million the next year. I grew up in a very Dutch family, and not only are we Dutch, but we talk about how much we're Dutch, and our entire identity is around being Dutch. And if you don't know anything about Dutch people, they are really freaking awesome at working hard and making a lot of money and being really great and frugal with their money. And they are not cheap. They are frugal. Get it straight. It is different. We are not dollar store shoppers. When we're going to buy something, we're going to buy the best, most highest quality version of it. But I also grew up in a very religious upbringing where it's noble to look poor because that means you're being humble, and God forbid that we would ever be flashy. And my one side of the family, there was just a lot of shoulding of what you should look like and what you should do and what you should give and what you should spend money on and what you shouldn't spend money. Like God forbid that you have like nice new flashy cars, but you definitely better be spending thousands of dollars a year on the private school, which is kind of wild because like obviously people knew that you were going to the private school and that you were spending money. I remember being 5 years old and I'm on the school bus. Remember, I rode the school bus for an hour and a half every morning and again, hour and a half every night. And there was this area that we would pick kids up where it was, now I realize like extreme low income. I don't even know if a lot of them had running water and electricity, to be very clear. And there was a high schooler that would get on the bus and he was really hard on me and would always be really just, give me a lot of grief and bother me a lot. And I remember turning to him one day and saying to him, how my parents, I don't know what the full context of the thing was that I said, but I do remember saying to him, basically like, you can leave me alone because you're nothing and your parents don't even love you and I'm better than you and my parents love me more because they actually pay for my education. He was probably making fun of the fact that I went to the private Christian school. And so that was my rebuttal to him. But it is that subtle arrogance that my mom would call it arrogance, that I definitely grew up with this very Dutch religious side of my family where we weren't allowed to be flashy, but we definitely knew our worth and we did not lack in confidence or self-assurance. Whereas, my mom's family was very much the give the shirt off your back that you don't even have. Family, you give and you give and you give and you give and give. And it's noble to give everything that you have and that you don't have. And so for me, my money story obviously started really young, just because my parents were both entrepreneurs and they were in farming. I remember when the farming crisis was happening and it was really bad. I was about, 2.5. And then again, when apparently when I was 7, my mom told us that they were going to have a third kid. And I had a freaking meltdown and locked myself in the bathroom for a day crying because I was convinced that adding one more kid to the family, we were going to be broken poor and that there wouldn't be enough. But we had really just gone through a lot as far as the farming thing goes. And so I think in my head, I was already calculating that then there would not be enough resources to go around. I mean, tell me you're an Enneagram 8 who's stressed and in her 5 going, we're going to add another kid. There's definitely not going to be enough resources. We just went through all of this. How are we going to pay for another kid to be in this stupid school that I hate and to feed them and clothe them? Like, this is not going to work out. Real quick, before we dive back in, I want to share something I created for the women who are growing, but still kind of feel like they're doing it alone. If that statement just hit, then this is for you. I've never felt so aligned and so alone. It's the message I kept hearing as more and more women were falling in love with their life doing what they were born to do. They were craving that like-minded, iron-sharpening iron relationship with other women who were as focused, powerful, and determined to be positive as they were. And that is why I created the Growth Collective. It's our All Things Excellence book club community where you don't have to read the book because audio and PDF Cliff Notes are provided for you. There's a community for you to connect and network with other growth-minded women, plus 2 monthly Zooms where you receive connection and live coaching from me. head on over to chelseydbc.com/book club to join us. All right, let's get back into it, because what you're hearing today is exactly why spaces like the Growth Collective exist. We were never meant to grow alone. So by the time I was 10, I was already paying for a lot of my things. And that actually stemmed from my parents were basically demanding I needed to be helping on the farm. And I said, I didn't choose to live here. I'm the daughter of a farmer. I am not a farmer's daughter. Get it straight. I do not want to help. I did not choose this. And they said, well, here's the thing. This is your life, and this you help, and this is what puts a roof over your head. And I said, well, I'm not going to do it. And they said, well, fine, we will give you the base amount of money, but you need to earn the rest of the money yourself that you want to get everything else that you want. Obviously they're paying for my food and putting a roof over my head and my health insurance and things like that. But when it came to wanting the and then some, I had to earn it myself. And that's when I started babysitting. I was 10 years old. And I started immediately marketing my little oldest granddaughter on both sides of a zillion cousin self to all the neighbors and all of my aunts and uncles. And my babysitting career began. By the time I was 15, all of my friends were getting to work at the local grocery store. And my parents at the moment said, you're going to work for the rest of your life. We do not support you getting a job at the grocery store right now. Well, I still needed to make money to have all of the fancy labeled Abercrombie clothes that everyone else was having. So instead, I became a house manager for a friend of my mom's, and I ran her direct sales business and babysat for her kids and would help in the pro shop and would babysit on Friday nights for all of the couples when they had couples golfing. So I was making stupid money at 15 years old, getting to live the life that I wanted to live, getting to spend money on the things that I wanted to spend it on. And by the time I was 18, I moved out and paid for my life fully. And I honestly never looked back. Okay, other than health insurance. Obviously, my parents were definitely paying for my health insurance. And I'm positive they were paying for my car insurance. But I was paying for my own cell phone and my food and my rent, everything else. So in college, I started out studying public relations and hated it because it was too easy. It was too easy. I complained to the board of the school that my A's were too easy. And they recommended that I switch to business school. So that's when I went and started studying finance instead. And I had the greatest professor of all time to be going to school in college and graduating in 2008 when the economic crash was happening. And he was all about, is this really the best bang for your buck? And that's where I got is this the best bang for my buck? That's where I got that constant exchange and that wiring and that mantra. So everything I do is kind of well, what is the bang going to be for my buck when I get this? Which is why when people are like, you're wearing $800 shoes. And I'm like, yeah, but I only have 3 of them. And I basically wear them every day. And I have been wearing them every day for the last 3 years. So at this rate, my shoes are cheaper than yours. A lot of bang for my buck with my Golden Goose shoes. And so after college, I'll just be so honest, I entered this season where I did it all right and then I did it all wrong. And then I had to pay a lot of money to clean up my emotions. So by the time I was 24, I didn't have any debt. I only had $20,000 left in student loans, which was excellent. My parents didn't give me a dime towards my college education at the time. I will say they are very much supporting Kobe in college now, so no shade to them at all. And I wanted to. I wanted to pay for my education. I wanted to go after it. I wanted to make myself accountable with it. But I was, by 24, down to $20,000 left from 4 years at a private university living on campus. And I only owed $45,000 on a house that I'd purchased. And I had a lot of money in investments and I had a lot of money in savings. So 24 years old, I'm sitting at a ridiculously great spot. And it was about a year later that Kobe and I started dating. And that's where I realized I'm the saver and he's the spender, which we've talked about on these episodes recently, how our childhood played into that. Me being the saver, I'm always saving it for a rainy day. Him being the spender, he's spending it before somebody else in his family can spend it. And from that, we've created this habit where he every 2 weeks when he gets paid, he pulls money into his Venmo and it's whatever the heck he wants to do with it. Money, complete, just comment free from me, because he just likes to spend money on, I don't know, the gas station. Anybody else's husband just love spending ridiculous amounts of money on at the gas station. And so that's where we have found our middle ground on him being the spender and me being the saver. But was doing all the right things, but I'd started a business where I was in sales. And when you step into sales and you grew up in the environment that I did with farming, which was rough, you all of a sudden realize you got a lot of money issues. That even though I was the saver, it was the money stuff was really starting to catch up with me inside of owning a business. And so that's when I hired a mindset coach. And that mindset coach is the same one that when I moved from Iowa to Dallas, she said, if you can, bring absolutely nothing. And you're only allowed to buy things there with the money that you directly make from your productivity there. So we're talking, I moved from Iowa to Dallas. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment, and all I had was a card table, 2 chairs, and a mattress, and obviously some sheets and some towels and some of my clothes. And that was it. And she's also the same mindset coach that taught me how much money do you need a month to live comfortably? Double it, double it, double it. That I had $48,000 sticky notes plastered all over my apartment. If you want to know more about that, we've talked about that exercise inside of the book club this month. So head on over to my book growth club at chelseydbc.com/book club. Go to my website and you can learn all about the $48,000 sticky note exercise there and why you want to be having sticky notes all over the place. And I will tell you that working with her really quickly quadrupled my productivity and my income. I really got it locked up. But what happened was I hired her and I worked with her for this amount of time, and then it all started exploding. But what I didn't know at the time, at 28 years old, was that I needed to keep working with her because I really quickly outgrew my nervous system. I did not grow my comfort zone, my nervous system, my body, my mindset, my everything with my income. And I quickly out-earned my comfort zone. And I took a lot of terrible advice from people. I now know I should have looked at their life financially and went, I don't want to trade places with you. I shouldn't listen to you. I had a really manipulative kind of like boss situation that caused me to make a lot of financial decisions that I wouldn't have made thinking like, this is what I've got to do to be able to keep moving up with this boss. And I was living in Dallas. I mean, Dallas is the land of $30,000 millionaires. And I'd just gone from a $400 mortgage to a $1,700 apartment overnight. And I was swinging big and risking big, just believing to my core it was just all going to work out. And it did. Until it didn't. And then I had to spend several years cleaning up the mess and going to a lot of therapy to grow that part of me and forgiving myself. And I started going into this space where I became very passive from being taken advantage of. I started playing really small, which meant my income was small because somewhere in my body, I decided playing small and staying quiet equaled being safe. Just from a lot of stuff that I went through in a really short amount of time as an adult. And next thing we know, of course, it's COVID and Kobe's back in school. And I did not adjust our lifestyle quick enough, going from 2 incomes down to 1 income. I kind of like we were kept living how we were living. And I didn't really think a lot about it just because of the situation that we were in at the time. And that also really caught up with us. And I had this childhood programming from when I was bullied for years that had programmed me that when I feel like I'm in abuse and misery, I'm stuck and there's nothing I can do about it. I can't get out. And that was a situation, because of how my parents felt that they weren't allowed to pull me out of that private school where I was being bullied for years. They felt stuck from their parents. And then me as a kid, I felt stuck, which programmed me when you feel miserable and even though you're being abused, like you're stuck, there's nothing you can do about it. And so that had trickled into my adulthood. And so the hardest thing I ever did as an adult was face my own crap and admit my own mess. And I had to release this thing inside that said, I should know better. And I would say all the time, I went to school for this. I did everything right. Like I got out of college, I was 24, I had everything in the world. Like, oh my gosh, I should have millions of dollars right now in my investments. And I had to go and admit, like, it's okay. You did everything right, and then you did everything wrong. And maybe you should have known better, but there's a lot of parts of you that didn't know better. And so I had to forgive those pieces of myself. And I had to go back to all the tools that I used before. I had to pull out that expense calendar. Y'all, literally a tiny little planner calendar where I write every day, what are the expenses that are coming out that day, helping me get grounded and aware of where is all of our freaking money going? What are all these freaking subscriptions that we have going on right now? And do we need all these subscriptions? I went back to my budget spreadsheet, and I say back to the expense calendar, back to the budget spreadsheet, because to be real, I had just stopped using them because I wanted to live in delusion. And I think we want to do that. Like when we don't want to face these choices that we've made because we're just, you could be, maybe you're ashamed of it. I was annoyed. I was mad at myself. Like, I should know better than this. I'm trained better than this. I just blew it all off. I wanted to ignore it, and then I had to get really grounded in reality and face like, you are overspending your life. I went back to setting up multiple accounts. If you guys don't know this, with Capital One, you can have an unlimited amount of free checking accounts. It is a beautiful thing. I love it. It allows me to put all the money in all the different places to keep it organized for all my different expenses. I went back to the $48,000 sticky notes, which they don't actually say $48,000 anymore because life is more expensive than that. I went back to the mantras and the meditations. Money finds me all the time from all the places, listening to my meditations every single morning when I'm sitting in the sauna that are helping me elevate my vibrational frequency around money. And of course, most of all, y'all, I went back to the books. The amount of books that I have on money mindset in the TBR pile right now would probably give y'all seizures, to be real. And I just want to tell you guys, I looked at the insane stack of money books and I said, okay, I'm only going to pick 5. And the first one is You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. And the reason I love hers, it's simple to the point. I actually love it most on Audible, and I'm not an Audible person at all. But the reason I love it on Audible is because I think it's like the gateway drug to money mindset books. It's straightforward, it's simple, and it just helps you get really comfortable around the idea of talking about money, realizing it's a thing, realizing no matter how much you have of it, you probably have an issue with it, and getting comfortable with some new money mantras that you need in your life. So love You Are a Badass at Making Money by Jen Sincero. The next one is How Rich People Think by Steve Siebold. It talks about the difference in how middle class thinks and how world class thinks and their different views on money. And I love this book. It's tiny, it's short, and he's got 100 of them. Middle class focuses on money when they need it. World class focuses on money all the time. Middle class believes having a job gives them security. Middle class knows there is no such thing, which I can tell you, I've been fired. So a job is not security. No. Middle class believes if they become wealthy, they will lose friends. World class believes being wealthy will expand their network. Middle class believes rich people are shallow. World class believes rich people are strategic. Middle class worries about running out of money. World class thinks about how to make more money. Middle class thinks about spending, and world class thinks about investing. So there's 100 in that book. How Rich People Think by Steve Siebold. Next up, number 3, Secrets of Six-Figure Women by Barbara Staney. I'm obsessed with Barbara Staney. I think she's like the GOAT for money mindset for women. I'm obsessed with her. I love her. She has many books, and I love all of them. I've read all of them. If you're that, I bet they're all the same. They're not. And I believe, like John Maxwell, you could read 5 of his books. You've read them all. But Barbara Staney, you need to read all of them. They're all different. You have to order the physical book because they are workbook style books. You need to be writing in them and loving all over them. If you look at mine, like they are tabbed up, down, and all around. The Secrets of Six-Figure Women, Surprising Strategies to Up Your Earnings and Change Your Life. She interviewed bucket loads of women who are making 6 figures. But this book came out a bajillion years ago. So, like when the average person was making like $21,000 and she's interviewing every woman that's making over 6 figures. The next one is another Barbara Staney book. It is called Overcoming Underearning. This is probably my most recommended book of all time because this is the book that says giving to others at the detriment to yourself is anything but noble. Giving to others at the detriment to yourself is anything but noble. Like I have this shirt and I'm going to give you my shirt. And now I don't have a shirt, but at least you have a shirt. That is not noble. It is noble to take care of yourself first and create wealth so then you can give. You can give from an overflowing bucket, not a half empty one or like you've already ripped out the bottom of your bale. So that is her Overcoming Underearning, a 5-step plan to a richer life by Barbara Staney. Obsessed with the book. if you're watching the YouTube of this right now, you can see it's like a hot mess express wreck because I've loved it so much. And the final book that I screamed from the rooftops about money, and we will have this author. This author will be our final Financial Friday series guest. Her name is Amy Kemp. She is a longtime friend and mentor of mine. I'm obsessed with her. I'm obsessed with her book. Even if I didn't know her, I would be so obsessed with her book. She is the GOAT on getting women to understand their unpaid labor. So as a woman, how much work you do that you are not paid for, all the things you do for your family, around your house, etc. Her book is called I See You, a guide for women to make more, have more, and be more without working more. It's like, if you're watching the YouTube, you can see I kind of dog-eared, every to every other page. It's outstanding. And it's just that. It's that book that is this big freaking permission to realize how valuable you are, how much unpaid labor you are, how you deserve to outsource certain things, and that when you outsource certain things, you're going to increase that income. That time when I was working with that first coach, all in that exact same time period, Amy said to me, you need to get some more help. And I did. And so I do think that the sticky notes worked. I think the mantras worked. I think the truth statements worked, which are all tools that you guys can find inside the book club and the growth club. But the biggest thing was Amy said, if you want to grow, you got to hire somebody first. Hire the help and then your work will grow, and I was like, all right, I got 2 weeks to pay this check. I guess my income's going to have to grow fast. And I was in the type of sales where it would grow that fast. And it did. And I know that Amy is a huge reason that my business and my income quadrupled in about a 9-month period just because of who she is. And so I highly recommend you get her book. You can get it on Audible. You can get the real one, whatever. Just know that she is coming to our Financial Friday series on the 14th of November, and y'all are going to freaking love her. She also has the course called Money is a Mirror. So I highly recommend that you go that way too. So, all right, y'all. Well, welcome to week 3 on our Financial Friday series. I'm so glad that you're walking this path with me. Go to Instagram, send me the DMs if you love this, like, subscribe, hit all the things, rate the 5 stars. It's a really, really big deal. It matters a lot. I would love to see you inside of the club where we're talking about a lot of these things and we're giving you guys access to a lot of these tools. So thank you for jumping on here today. I appreciate you so much. I can't wait to continue this journey with you. Thank y'all for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks for listening to All Things Excellence. If something landed with you today, I'd love for you to follow the show, share it with a friend, or leave a quick review. It helps more women find these transformational conversations. And if you're ready for support with your next step, or needing someone to stand in the gap with you to figure out what that even is, I'd love to create that space for you, and my intro clarity call is a great place to start. Because life is too quick and too full to have to figure it out alone. Until next time, All Things Excellence fam, thank you for listening.